A truck backed toward the slaughterhouse gates under the blazing afternoon sun, its rusty trailer rattling with the frail bodies of 50 starving dairy cows whose ribs pushed sharply against their skin. Workers shook their heads, buyers laughed openly, and one man smirked that the animals were worth more as cheap meat than as living creatures. Standing quietly beside a worn-out pickup was a skinny black boy named Colton Hayes, clutching every dollar he and his grandmother had managed to save over years of sacrifice. As laughter echoed across the dusty yard, Colton signed the papers that nobody else wanted, unknowingly making a decision that would one day transform abandoned hope into one of the greatest dairy businesses the county had ever known. If you believe kindness can change lives, forgiveness makes people stronger, hope should never die, and everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community that believes compassion always wins. Colton had grown up on a tiny piece of farmland outside the small farming town of Ashford Ridge. The property barely deserved to be called a farm anymore. The old fences leaned in every direction, the weathered barn carried decades of scars from storms, and the empty pasture had not held healthy livestock for years. His parents had died when he was very young after a highway accident, leaving him to be raised by his grandmother, Evelyn Hayes, whose aging hands still worked every day despite arthritis that stiffened her fingers. They survived by growing vegetables, repairing fences for neighbors, and selling homemade butter whenever they could afford enough milk from nearby farms. Poverty never left their doorstep, but neither did kindness. Ever since he was a little boy, Colton believed every living creature deserved dignity. While other children spent weekends fishing or playing ball, he wandered fields rescuing injured birds, feeding abandoned dogs, or nursing weak calves that neighboring farmers considered worthless. Some admired his gentle heart, but many believed compassion was a luxury poor people could not afford. The county auction had become famous for clearing unwanted livestock. Farmers who could no longer afford feed often sold their weakest animals for slaughter. That scorching afternoon, the truck carrying 50 skeletal dairy cows arrived after several larger buyers refused even to inspect them. Their milk production had nearly stopped because of starvation, neglect, and disease brought on by years of poor management. Their cloudy eyes reflected exhaustion more than fear. The crowd laughed when Colton stepped forward. Several people whispered that he was buying 50 mouths to feed when he could barely feed himself. Others joked that his farm would soon become the county's largest graveyard. Some even applauded sarcastically as the paperwork changed hands. Colton ignored every word. As the trailer rolled toward his small farm under the bright afternoon sky, he walked beside the frightened animals instead of driving ahead. Every few minutes he reached through the rails to gently touch a trembling nose or scratch behind tired ears. He spoke softly, not because the cows understood every word, but because kindness always carried its own language. The first weeks became one enormous struggle. The old pasture had almost no grass. Feed prices climbed every week. Veterinary medicine cost far more than Colton expected. Every morning before sunrise's first light fully brightened into day, he hauled water buckets, repaired broken fencing, mixed affordable nutritional supplements, cleaned stalls, and slowly introduced better feed so the starving animals would not become sick from eating too quickly. His grandmother watched quietly from the porch whenever her joints hurt too much to help. She often smiled despite the uncertainty because she recognized something rare inside her grandson. He never measured success by immediate profit. He measured it by lives restored. Word spread quickly through Ashford Ridge. People drove by during daylight simply to point and laugh. Children copied their parents, calling the pasture Colton's boneyard. One local dairy owner, Barrett Collins, operated the county's largest commercial dairy. Barrett was respected for efficiency and profits, but compassion rarely entered his business decisions. When he saw Colton feeding the skinny herd by hand one afternoon, he laughed loudly enough for nearby workers to hear. He predicted every cow would be dead within 6 months. His employees repeated those words across town. Instead of answering insults, Colton continued working. Weeks slowly became months. Tiny changes appeared. The cows began standing taller. Their dull coats slowly regained color. Open sores healed. Milk production remained small, but each week another animal started producing again. Colton carefully documented every improvement in an old notebook. He studied nutrition books borrowed from the local library. He attended free agricultural workshops during the day. He asked experienced veterinarians endless questions. Every mistake became another lesson instead of another excuse. His greatest breakthrough came almost by accident. Instead of feeding expensive commercial mixtures alone, Colton experimented with balanced natural forage grown on neglected sections of his property. He planted diverse grasses, clover, and nutrient-rich herbs that restored exhausted soil while providing healthier grazing. The cows responded far better than anyone expected. Veterinarians who initially doubted him began visiting simply to observe. One respected livestock nutrition specialist remarked that the animals looked healthier than many expensive commercial dairy herds. That single compliment quietly reached neighboring counties. Small dairy farmers began visiting during daylight to learn his feeding methods. Colton welcomed every visitor. He never charged for advice. He believed helping struggling farmers created stronger communities. His generosity surprised people who remembered being among those who laughed months earlier. Then another challenge arrived. An unusually dry season spread across the region. Pastures withered beneath relentless sunshine. Larger commercial dairies relying on overgrazed fields struggled to maintain production. Feed costs exploded. Several operations sold portions of their herds simply to survive. Colton's carefully restored pasture remained greener because years of soil rebuilding had increased moisture retention naturally. His cows stayed healthy. Milk production continued rising. Local grocery stores searching desperately for dependable suppliers contacted him. At first he could only deliver a few containers each afternoon. Soon demand exceeded everything his tiny operation could produce. Instead of expanding recklessly, Colton reinvested every dollar into better facilities, cleaner equipment, improved veterinary care, and additional grazing land. His grandmother reminded him daily that success meant nothing if kindness disappeared. He never forgot those words. As profits slowly increased, Colton hired neighbors who had lost jobs when other farms downsized. Single parents found steady work. Young people learned valuable agricultural skills. Retired farmers shared decades of experience. His small dairy became a place where people felt respected regardless of their background. Customers noticed another difference. Every milk bottle carried a simple message. Every life deserves a second chance. The slogan spread through surrounding towns faster than any advertising campaign. Families appreciated knowing the milk came from rescued animals rather than disposable inventory. Schools invited Colton to speak during daytime agricultural events. Children listened as he explained that compassion and good business could grow together. Many left inspired to volunteer at local animal shelters or help elderly neighbors. Meanwhile, Barrett Collins watched his own business struggle. Years of chasing maximum profit had weakened employee loyalty. His overworked land produced lower quality grazing each season. Customers increasingly preferred Colton's dairy because they trusted the story behind every bottle. Barrett became bitter. He criticized Colton publicly, claiming emotional marketing fooled customers. Yet even his own employees quietly disagreed. They had visited Colton's farm. They had seen healthy animals grazing peacefully beneath bright blue skies. They had watched workers smiling while performing difficult jobs. Eventually Barrett's financial problems worsened. One afternoon he stood outside his nearly empty processing building staring across the valley toward Colton's expanding dairy. Pride battled desperation. Finally he climbed into his truck and drove to the very farm he once mocked. Colton saw him arrive. There was no anger in his face. No desire for revenge. Only quiet curiosity. Barrett admitted his mistakes with visible embarrassment. Years earlier he believed weakness deserved disposal rather than investment. He confessed that watching 50 unwanted cows become the foundation of a thriving business had forced him to question everything he believed about leadership. Colton listened carefully. Then he offered something Barrett never expected. Help. Not a lecture. Not humiliation. Help. Over the following weeks, Colton shared pasture restoration techniques, livestock care methods, employee training ideas, and sustainable farming practices. Barrett gradually transformed his own operation. While it never became identical to Colton's dairy, it slowly recovered through honesty, better treatment of workers, and healthier care for livestock. The greatest victory had never been defeating a competitor. It had been changing a heart. Years passed beneath countless sunny afternoons. The 50 cows that everyone expected to die became the legendary foundation mothers of an expanding dairy empire known throughout the region for exceptional quality and remarkable compassion. New farms joined Colton's cooperative. Local businesses flourished through shared partnerships. Scholarships funded agricultural education for hardworking students. Food banks received fresh dairy products every week. The old pickup truck remained parked beside the modern processing facility as a reminder of humble beginnings. Visitors often asked why Colton never replaced it. He simply smiled. That truck carried hope when hope looked foolish. His grandmother lived long enough to watch children running across green fields where empty dust once covered the land. She often sat beneath the shade of an old oak tree smiling at the peaceful herd grazing across vibrant pastures that had once seemed beyond saving. On the anniversary of rescuing the cows, hundreds of families gathered for a community celebration held entirely under warm afternoon sunshine. Farmers, teachers, workers, and children walked among healthy cattle whose descendants filled rolling green fields stretching toward the horizon. Many remembered the laughter from years before. Now that laughter had been replaced by admiration. Before the celebration ended, Colton thanked everyone who had believed in second chances, even those who had doubted him at first. He understood that people could grow just as land and animals could recover when given patience, guidance, and compassion. Before this story comes to its close, take a moment to leave a meaningful comment telling us what lesson touched your heart the most. Do you believe one act of kindness can truly change an entire life, or even an entire community? Your thoughts may encourage someone reading them today. As the afternoon sun painted golden light across the thriving dairy fields, Colton quietly watched children laughing beside healthy cows that once stood trembling at the gates of a slaughterhouse. He realized the greatest treasure he had built was never the processing plants, the delivery trucks, the expanding farms, or the growing fortune. His true success was proving that compassion is never a weakness, faith is never wasted, and the lives everyone else gives up on sometimes become the very foundation of miracles. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Thank you for being part of our community, where kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances always find a place to grow.